All right, we have a, thank you so much for your patience. Well, all right. Okay, at this time, we're officially back in session. From the item number 2, the executive session. At this time, there will be no action taken. Take us to item number 3. A public hearing on request for a specific use permit from Yolanda Lane for a mobile home to be located at 303 South Millside Avenue, Crockett, Texas, also identified as parcel 9863 by the Houston County Appraisal District. Public hearing is now officially open. Any comments? Okay.
Hi, my name is Yolanda Lane. I reside at 303 South Millside. I am a resident of Crockett, Texas, and also a elementary 4th grade inclusion teacher here in the Crockett County. I just want to say thank you to the panel. I'm excited to be putting a new mobile home in the city of Crockett County, and I have one request, and I know this is not on record, but from my students, they said, please, Mayor, to tell you they want a skating ring. I told them I promised I would. They know everything I do. They knew I'm getting a new home. They said, Miss Lane, please tell them. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I figured where I was going with that. Okay, I missed. Okay, are there any more comments? If there's no more comments, we'll close. Okay, the public hearing is officially closed. Item number 4, consider and approve request for specific use permit from Yolanda Lane for a mobile home to be located at 303 South Mill Street Avenue, Crockett, Texas, also identified as parcel 9863 by the Houston County Appraisal District.
Mayor and Council, this has been taken to our Planning and Zoning Board. We've had public hearings there as well with no comments to the contrary of placing a new mobile home there where an old one was. They also provided a recommendation 4-0 in favor of this to council to approve.
I make a motion to approve
Second.
the request.
It's been moved and second. All in favor? Motion carries. Congratulations. Item number 5, a public hearing on request from David Baker for a zone change for AR Agricultural Residential District to C2 Commercial District for an approximate 0.950 acre parcel located at 2402 North 4th Street and identified as a parcel 3029 by the Houston County Appraisal District. Hearing is officially open.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm James Carter Hall, and I own a big part of that that whole residential area. We had a hearing with the approval with the board, and never heard back responses that was going to be to our questions about what was going to happen, or whether we voted yay or nay on having that being the property owners. So part of the verification is one of the big things was on the already codes that are in place that there would be no mobile homes or no modular buildings on Norman Lane, to ensure that if there was an office to be on that place, it would not be a concrete slab with a modular set on it, but a stick-built permanent building. That was one of the codes. And that there were, what about the entrances and exits to off of Norman Lane? The property value evaluations for the residential properties on Norman Lane, we never heard back on that. If none of those can be stipulated, I think we all need to, there were several of us who wanted us, if everything was, the codes were enforced, everything else, it would have been a yes on the property owners. If they weren't going to be enforced, it was going to be a 100% negative to having that. We never heard back as to what the results were of all the questions that were reason it was delayed to go back and find out those answers. And that's my big thing is without knowing everything, that if it's not, I'm going to have to go a negative on it. If it's okay that everything's passed, that all the codes will be enforced, that nothing but a stick-built building will be, all the fencing will be enforced, all the lanes, and it's not going to affect our property valuations negatively, then it would be okay. It'd be a yay. And that's all.
Just for the record, you're commenting under 2J MLH?
2J. Yes, we own all
Okay.
the 2J. I'm sorry.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
I can make a comment on that.
Okay.
We did reconvene the meeting.
Mhm.
It was called, postponed, and reconvened. The date was set at that time
Right,
when it
but we
was
weren't
reconvened.
notified.
But it was at that meeting when the notification was given when it would be reconvened.
Oh, I never received them.
Your comments regarding fencing and screening, that's
Uh-huh.
set by ordinance, so that's
Okay.
not even, doesn't even have to be, that will be a
Enforced.
requirement. We did get confirmation from TxDOT, they would make entry off of 287, that would be the commercial entrance. Since they do have two driveways already on 287, the ones on Norman Lane would be eliminated.
Okay.
That way there would be no commercial traffic down a residential
Right.
street.
Good.
Either.
What about the modular?
And then modular, that's also set by ordinance on commercial properties.
So it'd be a stick built, if they build an office or a building.
It would have to be a permanent structure.
Permanent built structure. Okay, well, that's fine. That's the answers I needed. Thank you.
So in regards, is your.
I'm fine with it at that regard.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Last call? Okay. Public hearing is officially closed. Item number 6, consider and approve request from David Baker for a zone change from AR, Agriculture Residential District, to CT, Commercial District for an approximately 0.950 acres parcel located at 2402 North 4th Street and identified as parcel 3029 by the Houston County Appraiser District. Council?
I make a motion we approve the zone change from David Baker.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor? Motion carries. Item number 7, congratulations. Your move. Consider and approve the City of Crockett hosting an Independence Day fireworks show, Freedom Over Crockett, on Saturday, July 1st, 2023, in front of the Civic Center, and enter into a contract with Firo Shows of Texas, Inc.
Mayor and council, we're excited to try to bring back fireworks to Crockett. We've been going on 4 years now without a fireworks show. We've been requested many times, but we feel like this year we've had more requests than normal. And so we as city staff kind of got together and, are we going to do this? Is it too late for it? You know, are we going to be able to get one up and running by July? And so the answer is we reached out to Pyro Shows. They are the ones that did our, when Coca-Cola, Crockett Coca-Cola Bottling Company used to sponsor it, they were the ones that performed the shows for them. Reached out to them, and they did have one opening left for July the 1st, which is the Saturday before July the 4th. And so it's on a Saturday evening. They did have a crew that they could put together, and they still had time to put all the state permits in and get everything approved. We spoke about cost. Costs were obviously a big factor. Are we going to be able to come up with the funding on it? They said for the amount of fireworks, that what we did is we went back and I asked them, you know, how big of mortar shells were used in our previous shows. I want it to be something, you know, remarkable that everybody can remember. Not just, I don't want small fireworks just to make a joke of the event. We want something really big and powerful. They said they could shoot up to 8-inch mortars. In previous years, all they've done is up to 5-inch. So obviously that's a good cost. But I said if we do it, we need to do it right. We reached out to, we sent out one email. I sent out one email to a lot of our local business people, vendors, people that we do business with, and let them know that there's lots of interest. Do they want to be a part of it? And we gave a deadline of 1 week to get us back some commitments. Will they support it? Will they provide funding for us to be able to do this? Obviously, this is not tax funded. In 3 days, we had $25,000 already committed to it. And as of date, we have $28,000 committed to it. All of that money, the $28,000, over and above the pyro shows, we did have Messenger commit $3,000 worth of free advertising for all the sponsors, doing big page events of the upcoming event, and everybody that's sponsoring it. The radio, KIVY, they also committed $3,000 in free advertising on radio space. We're going to commit every bit of the funds over and above the pyro, right now right at $3,000 in additional advertising. We're going to create banners to put around the loop to let everybody know of this event coming up, and as well as the sponsors and everybody that's involved in making this happen. So we do have funding. It's not going to be out of our budget, but we do have local sponsoring businesses and individuals that are willing to make this happen. So this is the map. They did have to expand it, move it down a little bit. We got approvals from neighboring properties. The area is considerably bigger than our previous zone, safety zone. So we'll have ample. And these, like I said, the 8-inch shells go up to 600 plus feet in the air, so they're going to be visible from a lot further away than previous years. So I think it's going to be pretty good. We need to hit it hard this next month. Heavy advertising, letting people know if you have problems, you know, hearing that, whether it be PTSD or animals or issues like that, that we need to be considerate of. You know, I want to put as much newspaper or radio and notification out there as possible, let people know about that event coming up. Especially since we haven't had it for several years, and people may be surprised about this event. That's about all I had on that. Is there any?
John? Our runway is right there. We're fixing to put in a brand new runway. That is a geotech runway. Those sparks hit it, it'll burn.
Are we open for discussion?
I mean,
Okay.
He's talking about this.
What was it? It's just for the council, right? Okay, yeah, this time. Well, actually, it was just a council discussion. It wasn't, I mean, it wasn't open for public discussion.
The Houston County Screaming Eagles has a working agreement with the city to use that property. And our
Okay.
runway is a geotech runway. And if we start popping off big fireworks out there and it hits it, if the fire department doesn't let it down, it'll burn.
Okay.
And
Well,
that's a lot of money.
okay, thank you. I didn't know, I wasn't sure that it was open for a general
It's not.
discussion. It wasn't, my
Do
apologies.
you want me to comment on any of that? We do have an agreement that that's being city property. We do have an agreement with a RC airplane group that flies airplanes out there. That is a working agreement to allow them to use the space.
But it's,
Within a month, I believe some steps can be made to protect their runway if they so wish, if they wish to work with the city, and we'll let them protect their runway to the best of, ability.
But it is cities.
But we will have fire services out there, if necessary.
Well, I've never seen nothing come actually all the way down to the ground. And we've been having it for years out there until the last 4 years. I mean, I think this is a amazing deal for Crockett. So,
So it's,
Any other
but
questions on it?
still, I mean, maybe the fire department can
Okay.
go out and wet
Sure.
their runway down.
we know that
before
every
the-
precaution is gonna be taken.
Yeah, I
Safety
mean,
is
but they
always.
can go out
Yeah.
and maybe wet it down before the fireworks or something. Yeah, I mean, I don't see nothing wrong with that.
So what is any other council pleasure? Do we need a motion for it?
I make the motion to approve the City of Crockett hosting an Independence Day fireworks show.
Okay, a motion on the floor.
I second.
Second, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 8, consider and approve an ordinance of the City of Crockett, Texas, amending Chapter 13, License and Business Regulation, Article 1, Section 13-1 of the Crockett Code to provide extended hours for the sale of mixed beverages and malt beverages for on-premises consumption, providing a servability clause containing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date. Council?
Mayor and council, are there any questions on this? This is relating to establishments regulated under TABC regulation that have TABC licensing for sale of beverages. Currently, we're at a midnight requirement that they close down at midnight unless they have a late hours TABC license. This does extend that, and it cleans up a little bit of our code that has not been addressed in several years since legislation has added new requirements under TABC, but also allowing for the sale of beverages in a hotel if you're a hotel guest.
I make a motion that we approve the ordinance to approve, extend the hours.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second, all in favor? You did
Abstain.
abstain?
Abstention would be an opposed. You oppose?
Oppose.
Okay.
Okay, so it won't pass. Okay, item number 9. Consider and approve an ordinance of the City of Crockett, Texas, amending Chapter 13, License and Business Regulation, Article 1 of the Crockett Code to add Section 13-2 to provide extended hours for private clubs for the on-premise consumption of alcoholic beverages, providing a servability clause containing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
Mayor and council, this relates to private clubs, lounges, other clubs that are in our city that have requested. They've spoken with council members, but this relates to extending their hours, their open hours from midnight to 2 a.m. And that's for consumption in a private club, someone that holds a private club registration permit.
I make the motion to approve the ordinance to extend the hours for private clubs.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Abstain.
Opposed?
Oppose. All right, didn't pass. Item number 10, consider and approve an ordinance of the City of Crockett, Texas, amending Chapter 15, offenses and miscellaneous provision adding Article 3, Section 15-1 of the Crockett Code to require permits for special events, to impose a permit fee, to provide exemption and exception from required permits, to require insurance as a condition of permit issuance, to provide for revocation of permits, providing a severability clause, containing a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
Mayor and council, this has been a subject that's been needed to be addressed for quite some time now, and we've seen a rise, and I think the police chief also wants to make some comments on this, but we've seen a rise in, no other way to describe it other than call them block parties, where certain people will start gathering in residential neighborhoods specifically to one property, but as the crowd grows, it spills out into the street and on neighboring properties, and largely unregulated. Not really one person in control of the event, no one to really hold accountable, and we've had definitely some issues arising from those type of events, even to shootings here recently in this past month, to injuries, ambulances being required, police. They show up, streets are blocked with cars, and because there's no regulated parking, and just not able to access properties. We definitely have an issue. However, in digging into this and trying to set some rules or guidelines over both public gathering and free speech, there are constitutional requirements that we also have to look at and include in this, to where people can still gather, they still have public assembly, they still have the ability to have an event for free speech events. So in doing so, we've looked at quite a few different other cities and what they require for block parties, for special events held in public properties. Public properties being streets, sidewalks, in the parks, any of our parks. We're very accessible and very willing to work with people when we know who's hosting the event, who's in charge, who's in control. What type of an event it is, what if somebody does get injured? They have to present some type of a plan. If it's some type of a movie night in the park versus somebody bringing in DJs and bringing in music versus a parade. This applies to a lot of those different scenarios. We need to know who's in charge of this event, who's in control, and who's responsible for it ultimately. And so I feel it's a pretty workable set of guidelines to come down, say, hey, we want this space reserved. We also have a lot of issues with, and it's a good thing, as our parks begin to be used more, and we have some the stages. We have this area across, the gazebo, and we have several different people wanting to use that for events. We just need to be able to regulate it and know who's going to be there, and not having overlapping people coming in and fighting for spaces. It just allows for better regulation of public events, and if it's on private property, I'm not sure what happened here. If it's on private property, that it not spill over and hinder public services, not block streets, not block houses down the road from ambulances and fire services. Y'all had some time to look over the ordinance. I don't know if there's any comments or questions on it. The permit, if council wants to discuss that and they feel like that's a nominal fee that we charge for most of our permits, is the $100 permit fee. Truthfully, there's not, that's up to council how y'all want to, if y'all want to adjust that, or depending on the event, really.
Like the permits deal, if it goes towards churches,
Well, if it's churches, charitable events, nonprofit events,
nonprofit.
those permits are waived anyway.
Okay, all right.
If somebody is hosting and bringing in a revenue off of an event,
It is.
you know, versus a nonprofit
Yeah.
community event,
Okay.
then those are two separate.
So if they're having a block party, say, on a private property that spills out on the street, and they get this permit, can that street just be blocked off?
And so then that's why there's a process in getting that type of, if the residents of that street request a block party, they're wanting to have a block party, then it's in conjunction or cooperation with the public services. We're bringing out barricades, we know about it, dispatch knows about it. It's a regulated and a established event that we can help support, not come in after the
After the fact.
after the fact and trying to address emergencies and not having been involved.
John, on the
Oh.
insurance requirements,
Right, the chief is gonna share his, I don't think, this wasn't
You know, it's not
an
open
open
for
hearing,
discussion.
I think where was that?
Mayor, council. So on this ordinance, unlike the previous two ordinances regarding the clubs and the private clubs, with those ordinances, those club owners, they're identified to us. We know who to go to if we're having issues. They're under the state law with TABC also, so we know who to go to remedy an issue that may come up. What we've seen is some of the private clubs that can only stay open till midnight. A lot of the patrons, so to speak, are going down the road and going to a block party, and they're staying up, partying, DJing, drinking in the streets till 3:30 in the morning. So we're enforcing our clubs to close at a certain time, but we're allowing, because we have the ordinance regarding block parties and other events, we're having to allow that to happen with regard to other potential city ordinance violations. So, like the city administrator said, I think there should be or could be some provisions in there about the permitting and the charges and things of that nature, but I think the ordinance overall covers a broad spectrum of events that go on in the city, and I think will really help manage those events a little better.
Thank you.
And I know that a lot of questions coming up about the insurance part. So how does that work?
That's required by statute. If you're holding and hosting an event on city property, then you take some responsibility in it. If someone gets injured or something goes wrong with your program or your project, you're not incurring liability on the city. The city is covered. You, as the host of this program, whatever it may be, and most of anybody having events in our park that we work with, they have an insurance policy. They can add a rider on for that
The
evening.
policy is usually 72 hours,
Yeah.
and it's, price of it's regulated by the estimate of the amount of people that's going to attend. That's what it normally is.
But most of our events that we have, like the Community Fun Day, you know, they go and they get a policy for that event. Or when you're renting our pavilion for an event, you get a policy for it. It's fairly inexpensive and pretty accepted by insurance companies.
Well, just like in Love Lady, when we do the Go Texan at the Low Lady Gym, we have to have a policy.
Yeah.
So
We require policy for any rentals of
That's
our
not-
pavilions or,
unnormal.
Back here.
Oh, okay.
Everything y'all saying.
Oh, you almost waited too late. We about through with the conversation. Well, you should have leveled out there. Anyway, they were discussing the cost of a policy, standard procedure of a
insurance
policy. And anytime it's one that it's been a standard procedure to have a policy if you rent city facilities. And where they were going, the other part of it is for local block parties. And for, like, as he said, for lack of a better term, when it gets to a certain number, it needs to be somebody that's responsible. Responsibility, if you throw it, you're responsible technically for your crowd. And if things happen, you have to be able to go through. And I think the chief had pointed out earlier that we've had some incidents in the community where They went on and on with the party with no regulations, and people in the community were not happy because they wanted to go to bed at a reasonable time. And so this is going to regulate casual function, but it won't, if you look at the numbers that involve, it's not so much family functions that would be involved as that the number of people from outside that were brought in, because the numbers is going to kind of indicate what happened with it. And so this is a measure of safety. We watch TV, we know what's happening in the world, and you have to put some safe provisions in there for a community of any size. And we're just trying to do what's best for the city in terms of how can you call the police if it's not well, he's limited if he doesn't have the policy to back him up. It always saying you think you can just go arrest anybody for, no, it doesn't work like that. You have to have some backup before you start arresting people or retaining, detaining people, or just even intervening on behalf of what's being asked. And so this ordinance, and one thing about it, if it's not working, it can be readdressed in another way. We just need a baseline to ensure the safety of our community. And it's been recommended by the officers that they can't do their job properly without the proper support and regulations and the law on their side, even though they're law people.
One thing that council may add to this, contingent on it passing, is require that certain hours, to where it removes us out of the position of having to make the determination of hours of operation of an event. So if you do have a block party, that you recognize that it is in a residential neighborhood and that it needs to stop at some hour that's, acceptable. What we think would be fair and even across the board is to follow all our other park curfew hours, which is 10:30 at night. That, everybody, so that, I mean,
we can revisit that later. We can revisit it.
Otherwise, you're putting the city administrator and the chief of police in the position of saying yay or nay, and I don't think that's right.
So does,
Well, I think Chief Smith had a great idea. I mean, if I was understanding what he was saying,
okay, will you give us some clarification on what you mentioned about time frame?
about the comparable of the hours.
So with the two curfews that we have in the city are the city park curfews, which are 10:30, and juvenile curfews, which are I'm written down. I knew I'd forget them. 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then 12 midnight Friday through Saturday. I personally think those are fair times. I don't think midnight's too late on a Friday and Saturday, depending on the location and the documentation that they provide to the city administrator and myself. So I would recommend probably across the board, instead of these days this or these days that, maybe 11:30 across the board on those type events. That way, that's something we can put out to the public. We can put a notice out and everybody knows what that is, instead of there being any guessing games.
Whatever it is, I would just, it's very helpful when you don't have a lot of if this, then this.
Yeah.
What is the hours that are acceptable?
The difficult situation with it is if you have a party, let's say in front of the Civic Center, it may not disturb nearly as many people as if we were to have one right down here on 6th Street or on Goliad, because of the proximity of other houses. So I think it's really difficult to have different time frames. I think you set one time frame, and that's I think that's the fairest way to do it. Now what that time frame is, my recommendation is 11:30, but that would be up to you all.
And that's what juvenile curfew is you said 11?
Juvenile curfew from Sunday through Thursday is 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday is 12, so I picked in between, 11:30.
Say one. Give them time to clean it up and
So-
get out the way.
And
Any
that still
discussion?
gives them the opportunity, those attending those parties, if they want to go to a private club or one of the other businesses in town to continue celebrating or whatever they're doing, they still have the option to do that as well.
Okay. Any recommendation, concerns, statements?
I mean, 11:30 is a little bit quick.
It's a what?
A little bit
For
too
me,
quick.
So,
12?
I
That
mean-
would, but neighborhood,
I mean, if the other
I say
places
between
are staying
12 and 1.
till 2,
I say between 12 and 1. Because, I mean, keeping the clubs open until 2.
but
One
neighborhood,
service.
In a neighborhood?
1.
So John, you're just basically
Oh.
trying to revise ordinance, so law enforcement has something.
okay. Now, rather than having an open discussion, we're gonna let the council go ahead and finish the discussion. Chief is gonna be in charge, we're just not, it wasn't meant to be an open discussion. The council can deliberate, discuss.
And
I
and
do-
you're talking about juveniles only, or just adults and juveniles?
As far as this ordinance curfew, I'd say that's across the board.
Adults and,
That's just for these specific events. That's not the curfews across the city. They're already set. These are for
And
these
just for the
specific events.
okay,
Just for the events.
Okay, that's
For
different.
permitted,
That's different, I mean. Instead of 11:30, do 12.
And I have that number in mind. It's not, we all know the later events go, the crazier things can get, things can
But they're
happen.
gonna leave there and go to the club, so.
That's true, but that's also a controlled environment
It is.
with
But-
owners and people in that.
But we've already got the other basically control because we know who's putting it on.
Sure.
Yeah, but I guess my biggest concern is block parties are neighborhood.
That's right.
And there are people, not everybody want to be up all night. I get a lot of calls that it's a lot of noise all the time.
The
And-
last two block parties we've had have went on till about 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
One resulted in a shooting, and
Yeah.
one resulted in an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. So when I say the longer things go,
I
things
agree.
happen, that's what I'm referring to.
If council wants to consider this and adopt it with requirements for block parties within a residential, any residential zones versus commercial or in the park, like say there's a concert going on versus something within a neighborhood where all the residents are not necessarily involved, it's just they're stuck because it's happening on their street.
I think that's more workable than.
You know, you could
I think so too.
put a time restriction on that, on block parties within residential neighborhoods, and leave the rest open. They still have to submit a plan, a date and a time, and their program
That's better.
for approval.
Sure.
And just at least give us some guidelines for residential neighborhoods.
Well, I think
Well, those-
residential should be at least maybe 12 o'clock.
Okay, it wasn't up for discussion. Your, Councilman Marge, you recommended 12 o'clock, you said?
At
Well-
least 12.
I second.
But
Okay. So, the motion that was on, I mean, it wasn't a motion put to a motion, but what the consideration was for residential parties, technically block parties, that a time frame be set if they're in a residential area, which would be to the extent of not later than 12 o'clock. If it's in an official area as a park or another business.
Non-residential.
Non-residential, thank you. Then the curfew, then the time could be extended.
is that okay?
I do think we'd have to reword it, because currently our ordinance, like in the park, there's already a curfew set by ordinance, so there may have to be some wording put in there that would allow that if it were a city park. If that's.
But is the park just for
Extended hours?
juveniles?
No. The park curfew
It's
is
10:30.
Yeah, it's
adults,
10:30.
juveniles,
Everybody.
10:30.
Everybody,
You're not even supposed to be in the park every
Not even supposed to be in the park.
Not supposed to be in the park, it's up to 10:30.
So all that parking and whatever gonna, okay, so one of the things, back to where we are with this at this point. We can decide to approve it with modification and the recommendation that those 2 time slots will be changed to reflect what was covered. Or we can table it and come back to it. So what is the pleasure, council?
So do we need to table it until they change it and go through it and look at everything? Or vote on it now?
Okay, well,
That's
what it
fine.
is, the recommendation for the changes to the residential, that was
Yes,
one.
agreed.
And if everybody was comfortable with the change to residential, and that was 12,
Yeah.
okay. And then for public places, the extension was recommended for what?
There was no recommendation.
No
We fall
recommendation.
under current ordinance
Okay, under current
and
ordinance.
the ability to
I
make that
think we need to
decision.
revisit
Okay.
that, though.
So for right
The
now,
curfew in the park,
Yes,
and we can bring
During
that,
events, yeah.
yeah.
we can bring
On
that back up.
events, Events only.
events, okay.
We can bring that up. That's a different ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, so can,
Well, I make the motion, we change it to 12 block parties and revisit the park for other,
So that would be another ordinance. I can bring that back to council
Okay.
for discussion. But for this one here,
12. Make the motion.
you make a motion to add midnight as the closure for block parties within
Yes.
residential neighborhoods.
Yes.
And approve the ordinance.
Yes.
Well, I second.
okay, it's been moved and second, all in favor? You abstain?
I
Okay.
oppose.
Okay. Motion didn't carry. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, that brings us to item number 11. Consider and approve the engagement agreement with Powell Law Group to assist the city in redistricting, excuse me. Assist the city in redistricting its precinct boundaries if necessary, secondary to the U.S. 2020 census, and encumber the necessary funding for contingency funds, from contingency fund.
Mayor and council, this was brought last meeting. There was a request to go and meet with the school district to speak on this before we move forward with it. We did have a meeting with the school district and have reached a consensus, to my understanding, that we're ready to move forward and to bring in the demographic data needed for us to move forward with the decision of whether we need to change our precinct boundaries or not. It's been 30 years since it was last done. Do our boundary lines properly represent each precinct and demographic within that precinct? It's required by law to look at it. We are also under judgment secondary to a lawsuit with requirements of how our precinct boundaries be made up. And the school district has moved forward earlier last year and into this year to address their boundaries. However, they have changed significantly from the way they overlay city boundaries. And so we see the potential for lots of voter confusion. One person at one resident having to go to separate polling places within the city for just city and county school district votes. So that is also out of line with judgment secondary to the lawsuit, that our boundary lines overlay each other and limit voter confusion. We need the demographic materials to bring different options to council to make a decision, and I think it should be done in conjunction with the school district to where we can reach the same consensus of what our district boundaries should look like. And I need the assistance of a demographer for this work.
Okay, so in essence, when we talked about it, is that the boundaries, they do have to be updated. The problem that we had is that the school and the city didn't coordinate together at the same time. As a result, it threw all of the boundaries out. But we were allowed to keep the same boundaries for this election. And the strength of it now is the person that did the city's evaluation, we're gonna use them also to do the
School district.
we're gonna now use them also to do ours, so that you won't have two people fighting against each other. It will be the same person responsible for both sections. And as a result, it should speed it up, and it should be a lot more balanced, because it would be all in-house. But do we have to change? Yes, we have to change. We have to look at it, and we have to update whether we want to or not. But there is a lawsuit that was affiliated, and it does have to be addressed also. So the bottom line is, instead of having two opposing people looking at the same situation, we're going to use the same company, and then they'll bring back what the solutions are. And so what we have on the table at this point is to agree for the council to agree to use the same company to do the work.
Well, I make a motion that we approve the engagement agreement with the Powell Law Group
Second.
to assist.
It's been moved and second. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to item number 12. Consider and approve reappointment of members to the Parks and Recreation Board.
Mayor and council, we have two different boards with expiring terms. This month, we've reached out to those board members, and they have stated that they would like to be reappointed. For our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, we have Spencer Burke, Chris Jones, Lindsey Rice, Larry Robbins, David Tyre, Joe Denman, and Kimberly Mars. And they've stated that they would like to serve for another 2-year term.
Make a motion to approve the reappointment.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor? Motion carries. Item number 13, consider and approve reappointment of members to the Board of Adjustments Commission.
Mayor and council, we have the Board of Adjustments, who is also approaching expiring terms, and they have also stated that they would like to serve again. Bill Holcomb, Michael Brenner, Joe Denman, David Tyre, Samantha Wiley, and alternates Lois Ball and Carla Popica.
Make a motion to approve the reappointment.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. All in favor? Motion carries. Brings us to item number 14. Consider and approve payment of invoices from Crockett Economic and Industrial Development Corporation. We have the bills.
You look at it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, everyone has had an opportunity. Can we get a motion?
And make a motion to approve the payment of invoices.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor? Motion carries. At this time,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
meeting adjourned.
You know that piece of land over there on